The NBA is full of legends, but some of the biggest stories are the ones that never happened. What if Derrick Rose never got hurt? What if a future superstar never even got the chance to play? And what if one trade changed the entire league? Because sometimes one moment doesn't just change a season, it changes history. In 2011, Derrick Rose wasn't just good, he was unstoppable, becoming the youngest MVP in NBA history at just 22 years old, exploding past defenders and leading a Bulls team that looked ready to dominate for years. Then came 2012. One landing, one torn ACL, and everything changed instantly. Because if that injury never happens, we're not talking about a comeback story. We're talking about a dynasty, multiple MVPs, and a Bulls era that defines the 2000s. Before he ever played an NBA game, Len Bias was already being called the next great Celtic, the future successor to Larry Bird. But just 2 days after being drafted in 1986, he tragically died, and the NBA never got to see the superstar scouts believed was coming. That means Boston's dominance, and even the league's balance of power, could have shifted before Michael Jordan ever won a title. Speaking of Jordan, in 1993 he retired at the peak of his powers after 3 straight championships. But what if he never left? 8 straight championships suddenly doesn't sound impossible, and entire generations of players might have been pushed aside, because Jordan didn't just dominate an era, he paused it. A moment in Oklahoma City where 3 future MVPs, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden, were all on the same team. But Harden was traded before they reached their peak, and just like that, a potential dynasty disappeared before it even began. Because in another timeline, OKC dominates the entire decade instead of becoming one of the biggest what-ifs in NBA history. But those aren't even the biggest what-ifs in NBA history, because the next ones change trades, primes, and entire championship eras forever. But then came one trade that never officially happened, and it may have changed NBA history more than almost any deal ever completed. In 2011, the Los Angeles Lakers had reached an agreement to acquire Chris Paul in a blockbuster trade. Kobe Bryant was finally going to team up with one of the greatest point guards basketball had ever seen. The paperwork was already in motion, and fans believed another Lakers dynasty was about to begin. But because the NBA owned the New Orleans Hornets at the time, league officials rejected the trade before it became official. In a matter of minutes, one of the biggest deals in league history completely fell apart. Instead of joining Kobe in Los Angeles, Chris Paul eventually landed across the hallway with the Clippers. The Lakers slowly slipped out of contention, while the exciting Lob City era suddenly came to life. But imagine if that trade had actually been approved and nothing had stood in the way. Kobe's championship window may have stayed open for several more seasons with an elite playmaker beside him. Chris Paul might have captured the championship ring that somehow escaped him throughout his incredible career. And without Chris Paul, the Clippers may never have become one of the league's biggest attractions. One rejected trade completely reshaped the futures of 2 franchises for more than a decade. 4 years earlier, another decision quietly changed the future of the NBA before a single game was ever played. Holding the first overall pick in 2007, Portland selected Greg Oden instead of Kevin Durant. At the time, many scouts, executives, and analysts believed Oden was the obvious choice at number 1. He looked like a once-in-a-generation center with the size, strength, and defensive talent every team desperately wanted. Durant, meanwhile, faced constant criticism for being too thin to dominate at the professional level. But devastating injuries robbed Greg Oden of nearly his entire career before it ever truly had a chance. Kevin Durant, on the other hand, developed into one of the greatest scorers the game has ever witnessed. But imagine if Portland's decision had gone the other way and Kevin Durant had become the face of the franchise. Suddenly, the Trailblazers are no longer rebuilding. They're building around one of the greatest young scorers basketball has ever seen. Kevin Durant joins forces with Brandon Roy and LaMarcus Aldridge, forming a trio with incredible offensive potential. Instead of becoming one of the league's biggest heartbreaks, Portland could have become one of its greatest success stories. The Western Conference suddenly has another powerhouse capable of challenging every championship contender throughout the decade, all because of one decision made on draft night before either player had ever stepped onto an NBA court. One selection completely rewrote the future of Portland and changed the balance of power across the entire league. But not every NBA what-if begins with a draft or a trade. Sometimes it begins after winning it all. In 2019, Kawhi Leonard delivered the Toronto Raptors their very first NBA championship and became a legend overnight. After one of the greatest playoff runs in franchise history, many believed another title was already within reach. Toronto had an experienced roster, championship confidence, and every reason to believe they could defend their crown. But when free agency arrived, Kawhi shocked the basketball world by signing with the Los Angeles Clippers. Almost instantly, the Raptors' championship window began to close despite remaining one of the league's strongest teams. But imagine if Kawhi had decided to stay in Toronto for just a few more seasons. The Raptors could have returned to the finals and competed for multiple championships with their championship core still intact. Meanwhile, the Clippers may never have become the Western Conference contender everyone expected them to be. The Eastern Conference looks completely different, and several playoff runs across the league suddenly changed direction. One free agency decision reshaped the future of two contenders and altered the path of multiple championship races. Another potential dynasty may have slipped away before fans even realized it had the chance to begin. If you guys enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Comment down below what was the craziest NBA what-if in this video, and comment what NBA what-if you would like to see next. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. See you next time. Peace.